Hello everyone. My course, Mastering Color Grading in DaVinci Resolve, is finally out there. If you don't know me yet, my name is Kasia. I'm a certified DaVinci Resolve trainer and a professional colorist, and I have developed this course to teach you the art and science of color grading. This course is suitable for both beginners and more advanced video creators, and it teaches real professional and creative skills like how to use DaVinci Resolve's color management, how to perform primary and secondary color corrections, and how to create multiple creative film looks. What is more, it includes all video lessons and downloadable footage, so you'll be able to practice using a high quality professional clips. And also, it's not only an online course, it's a community. You have an access to all discussions and you'll be able to contact me directly, so I will be able to answer all of your questions. This course is suitable for both studio and free version users, and I hope you have a lot of fun doing this. See you there. In this very first lesson, I will introduce you to the Color tab in DaVinci Resolve, and I will also tell you how you can import the footage and how you can set up your project for the course. So now I have my Color tab open, and my color page is completely empty. My node graph over here is empty and so on, but we'll move on to it in a second. And I am using DaVinci Resolve Studio 18.6, but the course also applies when you are using the older version, and it will apply to most of the future updates of Resolve. So first, let's move to our Media tab over here. And here we have the Media pool, where we can import the footage and we can organize it into bins. It is also empty for now. And then over here, when you click on the media storage, you'll have an access to all the folders on your computer. So you will have to navigate to the right folder with the footage. I hope I don't have to teach you this. And here I have the folder called Color Grading Course. This is the folder you can download from my Google Drive. This folder contains all the footage for this course, and it's nicely organized into modules, and also you have there camera information for each clip. If you don't want to, you don't have to download the whole folder. You can also download the clips separately for every lesson, but if you want to have it all in your project, I have created it for you. But before we import our footage, let's go here to the project settings, then the master settings, and my timeline resolution is now set to 1920 1080, and my timeline frame rate is set to 25 frames per second, so please make sure that your project is set up like this as well. When you have some 4K or 6K clips, you can change the timeline resolution at any time, but you cannot change the frame rate, okay? So please keep it in mind. Now let's close it. And now when we drag our folder with the footage into the project, you'll get this information saying that selected clips have different frame rates than the project frame rate, and therefore you can change it. But when it happens, just hit don't change, as this is because the majority of the footage for this course is shot 25 frames per second. There's only a few clips shot in 24 frames per second that will play fine, and there's some clips shot 60 frames per second, so we can make them slow motion. And now all the clips from the folder are in the media pool. The only problem is that we have lost all of the folder structure I have created on the computer. So we'll have to recreate it in this project. If you don't want to do it, it's up to you, but I always organize my clips into different folders to keep everything neat. So I will remove all these clips from my media pool. And now when we have a look at the color grading course folder on the computer, we can see that we have here our clips nicely organized into modules. There's also a folder with some extra footage for you to practice. And then the clips are organized depending on how they were shot. So what I want to do is to recreate the same folder structure in my media pool to make it nice and tidy. So I will right click on my media pool and I will create a new bin, and I will label it as module 1 and 2. Then I will create more folders and I will label them the same way. Okay, now let's open the module 1 and 2 folder and let's import here our footage. So I can just drag this whole folder over here, change the project frame rate, no. And now I can also put all these clips into separate folders to know as a reminder how they were shot. I will basically create a separate bin for every clip and I will label it correctly, and then I will drop there my clips. So I will speed up the video now as the process will take a while. And as I said, you can copy what I'm doing, but you can also organize your footage your own way. Okay, so now in my master folder, I have all of my footage organized into different folders, all 4 modules. So I can close the media storage tab. And again, this is how my folders look. And now, if you haven't seen the color tab before, I want to quickly walk you through it. But to make it work, let's move to the edit tab first, as we have to drop some of our clips onto the timeline. So I'll grab some clips from the module 1 and 2 folder. Okay. And now I'll also cut them a bit shorter. They don't have to be that long. Like this. And now let's move to the color tab. And I think it's worth to mention that the color tab may look a bit different depending on your screen resolution. I work on my laptop now as I thought that it would make all the tools more visible. But when you work on a higher resolution screen, your tools down here will be separated a bit more, but it doesn't make a huge difference actually. So here in the viewer, we can see the frame that our cursor on the timeline is placed on. And we can also click on the clips tab here to be able to see the thumbnails of all of our clips on the timeline, and then we can swap between them. Then when we hit space, we can play our clip and we can loop it by selecting this icon over here. So when we play the clip with the loop button on, the selected clip will play continuously. Then here on the right, we have our note graph, where I'll be showing you how to build the notes structure and how to use different types of notes in the following lesson. Then here we have a quick export button that allows us to do some quick exports in different formats depending on what we need. And then when we click on the timeline button, we can get a different view of our timeline over here if you want to. And we can move our cursor through it like this. Then we can also close our notes tab if you want to get a full view of the clip. Then here, when we click on the Effects tab, we can get an access to all DaVinci Resolve effects. I'll be showing you some of them a bit later. And then we've got the Lightbox that enables us to see all of our clips in a grid. And it's very helpful to spot any mistakes. If you watch my YouTube tutorials, you are familiar with this feature. Then we can also enhance the size of our notes here, like this. Then we can use this button over here to expand the viewer. Then we have a bypass color grades and fusion effects button that enables us to turn our grades on and off. So just to demonstrate you, let me perform some changes to this clip quickly. I will just use my curve to make it darker. It doesn't matter for now. So this button basically turns our grade on and off. Then here we can decide if you want to use the proxies for better playback or not. So if you have proxies created, you can turn them on here. I've also explained it in one of my YouTube videos, how to improve the playback in Resolve. And then here we have our highlight mode that we'll be using multiple times in this course. It basically enables to see our masks and other selections properly. Then we have a split screen mode, and here we can basically choose which clips we want to see as a split screen. So when I choose neighbor clips, it will basically show all of them in a grid like this. And this feature is very helpful when we want to compare grades on the neighbor clips. Then we have the image wipe mode that is useful when we want to work with a reference clip. And then over here we can turn on and off our clips thumbnails. Then here we can get an access to our media pool. Here we can get an access to all of our LUTs. We can also access them by right-clicking on the node, and I will be showing you in this course how to use some of the Resolve inbuilt LUTs. Then here we have the gallery, where we can place our stills. So for example, I want to export some stills quickly for the clients. I can simply right-click on the clip in the viewer, then I can select grab still, and this still automatically will appear in the gallery over here. And then we can right click on it and we can export it. Then over here we have all of our grading tools, and we'll be focusing on them in this course. Then here we have these scopes that are indicators helping the colorists to make sure that the clips have the right luminance, hue and saturation levels, and I will be also covering how they work. And now let's have a quick glimpse at the delivery tab, from where we can export our clips or the whole edits. We can select which part of the timeline we want to export, and here, depending on your deliverables, if you are familiar with other editing softwares, this is quite self-explanatory how to export videos. So you can choose here the file name and then the exact export settings, and you can also choose from some available custom export settings over here. In this very important lesson, I will cover color management, and although color management is a very broad topic and it's quite intimidating for some people, I will show you the settings that will work for most camera formats. But first, why color management is actually so important. It is important as different cameras film in different color standards. So, for example, consumer cameras or phones tend to film in Rec. 709, which is a format ready for the viewing, but more professional cameras film in different log or RAW formats that basically capture more of a tonal range that gives us more flexibility in color grading, but it also needs some remapping to be ready for the viewing and delivery, as the cameras often can capture a way broader tonal range that our displays can reproduce. So let's have a look at our clips here, and let me show you what I mean. So we can clearly see that they look very low contrast and washed out, and this is simply because they are in log or RAW formats and they need to be remapped to Rec. 709, as this is a format used by most of the high definition displays. And I've picked a lot of different camera standards that have been converted to different formats as well, because I really wanted to show you a lot of different scenarios. And now I will show you two ways of transforming your clips to Rec. 709. First, we'll be using a color space transform node, and we'll be working in DaVinci Resolve's non-color managed environment. And then I will show you how to work in DaVinci Resolve's color managed. But let's start from the color space transform workflow. And also one more thing before we move on to that, as we could obviously try to use the display refer technique instead of color managing our clips. So for example, let me use this Alexa clip to show you. We could just increase the gain, which is the highlights first. Then we could decrease the shadows, our lift. And then we also could decrease the midtones, which is our gamma. And then we could add more contrast. And then we could balance it with the pivot control. So we could basically rely on the visual judgment to bring our clips to the right point. But this technique isn't very accurate, and I would recommend you to avoid it. Okay, so let's reset it. And first, let's open our project settings over here, and let's go to the color management tab. And for the CST workflow, we will leave the color science set to DaVinci YRGB. That is a DaVinci non-color managed. Then we have a timeline color space. And the timeline color space is a color space that you are grading in, and it can be different than the camera color space and the output color space. And ideally, it should be set to whatever your footage color space was. So for example, if we had on the timeline only Panasonic vlog clips, like this one, we would set it to Panasonic vgamut vlog. And if we had only red footage, we would set it to Dragon Color Redlock film, and so on. But in the case where we have a mix of different clips on the timeline, I would recommend you to set your timeline color space to DaVinci White Gamut Intermediate, simply because this color space is designed to capture the vast majority of colors that can be captured by the latest modern cameras. It's a very large color space, and to demonstrate it, let's have a look at this diagram where you can see the Rec 709 color space. That's a color space of most of the standard displays. Then we have also other color spaces like Rec 2020 or ARRI White Gamut. And then we can see that DaVinci White Gamut is the largest color space, so it will be suitable for all of the camera color spaces. I know it might seem to be complicated, but you will learn it very quickly. And then we have our output color space, and this should be set to what we are projecting to. So I work using a calibrated grading monitor that's set to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, but if you're working on your computer and you don't have a calibrated monitor, just set it to Rec 709 Gamma 2.2, because Gamma 2.2 is the standard gamma setting for Windows and has been the standard gamma setting on Apple computers as well. And let's hit save. Now let's move to our Panasonic clip. And here I'll create a few serial nodes by hitting Option S, as it's also important to remember that if you choose the CST workflow, place your CST node at the very end, as this way you'll be grading underneath it in the wider color space, okay? So now let's just label that last node as CST, and let's grab the color space transform from the effects, and let's drop it onto our node. And in order to remap your clips correctly, you have to know exactly how your clips were shot. So in case you haven't shot your clips, get this information from the camera operator. And today I will tell you exactly how our clips were shot, so you don't have to be worried about anything. And for this clip, the input color space is Panasonic vgamut. Then input gamma is Panasonic vlog. Then my output color space will be Rec 709. And my output gamma will be Gamma 2.4. And voila, the first clip has been correctly converted. This is before and after. And now we can see that it's quite bright, so we can quickly adjust it underneath our CST. So I will just push my lift down and then my gamma up a bit. And now our clip looks well prepared for the further grading work. Now let's move to the second clip, and this is our ARRI Alexa clip. So let's drop onto it our CST. And here the input color space is ARRI White Gamut 3. Then input gamma is ARRI Log C 3. And then the output color space and the gamma will be again Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 in my case. And this is before and after. And we are not grading yet, but we can also adjust it quickly. So let's right click on the CST node and let's add another serial node before it, like this. And this clip is quite dark, so here we can quickly raise the gain, and then let's raise the lift a bit, and let's decrease the gamma to get a nice starting point for grading. Now let's move on to the third clip, and this is our Sony Log3 Cine clip. And here the input color space will be Sony S Gamma 3 Cine, then input gamma will be Sony S Log 3, and the output color space and gamma will be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. And here we'll have to fix the color temperature to balance it, but I will show you how to do it in another lesson. So now let's move to our Blackmagic Raw clip. And here the input color space will be Blackmagic Design White Gamut Gen 4/5. Then the input gamma will be Blackmagic Design Pocket 6K Film Gen 4. And my output space and gamma will be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. Now let's move to this Canon clip and let's apply the color space transform as well. And here my input color space will be Canon Cinema Gamut. Then my input gamma will be Canon Look 2. And the output color space and gamma will be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. And this is before and after. And then we've got this lovely Nikon RAW clip. And for Nikon RAW, the input color space is actually Rec 2020. Then the input gamma is Nikon N-Log. And the output color space and gamma is again Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. And this is before and after. Then we've got the Blackmagic clip that's converted to Rec 709 already. So here we obviously don't have to apply any color space transform, so we can move straight to the last Sony clip. And here the input color space is Sony as Gamut free. Then the input gamma is Sony as Look free. And the output color space and gamma will be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. And this is before and after. So now we have converted all of our clips, but I want to show you how to do it quicker with DaVinci Resolve color management. And in this course, we'll be working in the color managed environment, as I think it's more suitable for beginners. But not only, it's just very helpful as DaVinci Resolve is able to recognize some of the log or raw clips, so we don't have to set up anything manually. It just makes things easier for everyone. So let's just move straight to it, so you know what I'm talking about. So here we have the same sequence on the timeline as I have removed all CSTs from my clips. And in order to be able to work in the color managed environment, let's go here to the project settings again, and then in the color management tab. First, let's change the DaVinci YRGB to DaVinci YRGB color managed. We also have here two ACES color sciences to choose from, but I will not be covering it in this course. It's just another color science to work in. Then we could use automatic color management over here. This would be the option for very beginners. So here I would only change the color processing mode from SDR to HDR, as we have the HDR clips on the timeline. And here we can read that the HDR grading environment is best used when the majority of source material is HDR, and it's suitable for wide gamut SDR and HDR deliverables. And then we'll leave the output color space as SDR Rec 709, as this is a standard output color space for deliverables. And let's hit save. And here we are able to see that most of our clips have been automatically converted. So here when we right click on the clips thumbnails, when we work in the color managed environment, we have this option input color space, where we can check the input color space of the clip manually. So this one has been correctly recognized as Panasonic V Gamut. This one has been also correctly recognized as Arial Oxy Free. Then this one as Sony Cine S Log Free. Then this Blackmagic clip has also correctly recognized and remapped. And when we right click on it, we don't even have the input color space option here, as this is because DaVinci Resolve doesn't give you that option with the raw clips. But then, for example, this Canon clip hasn't been correctly recognized. This is what happens when our clips have been converted to different formats sometimes. So in this case, we need to adjust it manually. So let's just pick here Canon and then Canon Look 2. Then our Nikon clip has been recognized as it's raw, as there's no need to change anything here. Then we have our Rec 709 clip. that has been correctly recognized. And then we have our Sony clip that we have to adjust manually. So it will be Sony and then Sony look free. Okay? So as you can see, this process is way quicker. But now I also want to teach you how to customize your color management settings more. I want you to learn more and I want to show you the best settings. So let's go back to our color management tab and let's deselect automatic color management. Then let's change the color processing mode to custom. Then our timeline color space will be DaVinci White Gamut Intermediate, as you remember this worked for all of our clips. And if you had only one type of the footage on your timeline, you could set it to whatever it was. So you could set it as Sony S Look Free, ARRI Look C, etc., etc. And then we have the input color space. So how to set it up when we have mixed clips on the timeline. So I would basically set it to the input color space that applies to the majority of our clips on the timeline, because as you remember, I've just shown you, we can change the input color space manually by right-clicking on the clip's thumbnail. Okay, so all of my clips were shot differently, so I'll just pick Sony as Look Free. And then we have the output color space that should be set to whatever we are projecting on. So in my case, I will set it to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. When you work on your computer screen, set it to Rec 709 Gamma 2.2. So these are the settings I will be using for all lessons in this course. So let's click Save, and then let's go through all of our clips to see if they were correctly converted. Perfect. I hope you've learned a lot today.